Marge Ptaszek was searching for the purpose of her life and the truth that would tie everything together to make sense of what was taught and what was happening on our planet, the fire that was creating all the smoke. Through many experiences, she was finally led to the knowledge book that provided all the answers. She is now talking about this gift to humanity on Knowledge Book Radio, so all can be united in peace, love, and harmony. Please call 1-973-787-7035 or email mmjp99@gmail.com with questions. If you send your postal address to mmjp99@gmail.com, you will receive 3 chapters of the Knowledge Book as a gift. Now, here is your host, Marge Ptaszek.
I'm Marge Ptaszek, and you're listening to the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek on Transformation Talk Radio. For the next time that we will continue our series of Omega Talks. These are given once a month on the 4th Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time and 7 p.m. East Coast time. Now, these Omega Talks are part of the unification program of the Call to Friendship Association that's mentioned in the Knowledge Book. In these talks, we connect world knowledge to the Omega dimension, which is otherwise known as the Union of Central Suns or the 19th dimension. The 19th dimension has been closed. We were not able to get energies from this dimension. It has been inaccessible to the world human until now. And for the first time, this 19th dimension is open to humanity through the Knowledge Book. It also is part of the Alpha Entrance Omega Exit program that was mentioned by Jesus Christ. Now, the topic for this month is Pope John Paul II. You kind of may be wondering, what's he got to do with anything? He's long dead. Sorry, gotta adjust. He's long dead. And what did he do that was so special? So we'll go through and see what it is about John Paul II that is special and why he is important and was important during his time and during our time. Now we'll start out with a quote from the Knowledge Book. In Fascicle 15, it says, quote, "The sages and prophets of the past periods and friends who gained success at an advanced level in the past are living on your planet by gene transfers in this period of sincerity that is called the period of resurrecting. And they serve on your planet with an unveiled awareness as a result of having attained their essence consciousnesses." End of quote. So first we'll introduce John Paul II. He was actually born Karol Józef Wojtyła on May 18th in 1920 and died in 2005. He was a head of the Catholic Church and sovereign of the Vatican City State from 1978 until his death in 2005. It was during the Second Papal Conclave of 1978 that he was elected Pope. Now, the Second Conclave had to be held because the original John Paul I, who was elected in the first conclave, died after 33 years of being in office. And he was there to succeed Pope Paul VI. So Pope Paul II, he called himself, or he wanted his name to be Pope Paul II in deference and respect to the first John Paul I. Now, to put it a little bit into perspective, John Paul II was the Pope at the time the Knowledge Book was being dictated. And Kemal Ataturk was actually 39 when Pope John II was born. And John Paul II was 18 when Ataturk died. And Paul II was 3 years old when Mrs. Chorak, or Mevlana, was born. So all these are 3 great missionaries great leaders of our time, and previously they were gifted to humanity to help us along. As was said before, John Wojtyła, or Cardinal Wojtyła as he was known then, was elected on the third day of the conclave, which is actually a very quick time, and adopted the name of his predecessor in tribute to him. Born in Poland, John Paul II was the first non-Italian pope since Adrian VI in the 16th century, and the second longest serving pope in modern history. The longest serving pope was actually Pius IX. Now, what he tried to do was to improve the Catholic Church's relations with Judaism, with Islam, and the Eastern Orthodox Church. He maintained the Church's previous position on such matters as abortion, artificial contraception, the ordination of women, and a celibate clergy. And although he did support the reforms of the Second Vatican Council, he was seen as generally conservative in their interpretation. The interesting fact about him is that he was one of the most traveled leaders in history, visiting 129 countries during his pontificate. Also, as part of his special emphasis on the universal call to holiness, he beatified 1,340 and canonized 483 people, more than the combined tally of his predecessors during the preceding 5 centuries. By the time of his death, he had named most of the college cardinals, consecrated or co-consecrated many of the world's bishops, and ordained many priests. So he was very active in the church, in beatifications and making people saints. And most of the cardinals that were in place at the time, he named. Okay, in the knowledge book in Fascicle 4, it states, quote, as a matter of fact, at the moment, our light friend, the Pope, is building the biggest mosque of Europe in Rome. He is the first responsible one who has attained this consciousness on the path of world brotherhood. He is trying to unify humanity with all his endeavor. Our gratitude is infinite, close quote. So even in the knowledge book, John Paul II is acknowledged as being one of the missionaries, one of the great people who have come down to our planet to build unification and build brotherhood, sisterhood on this planet. He has also been credited with helping to end communism in his native Poland, as well as the rest of Europe. So he was behind the scenes worker as far as the solidarity movement in Poland. And once that started, then the other countries in Europe started to follow suit and eliminated and removed communism from their governments. He was actually born Karol Józef Wojtyła in Wadowice, Poland, and his early life was marked by great loss. So he was not a happy childhood kind of life and carefree child, because his mother died when he was 9 years old, and his older brother Edmund died when he was 12. So he grew up with great loss. He was also very athletic and enjoyed skiing and swimming. He went to Krakow's Jagiellonian University in 1938, where he actually showed interest in theater and poetry, and not becoming a priest at that particular point in time. However, that university was closed during the next year by the German occupation of Poland. And at this point, he started to want to become a priest, and he began to study at a secret seminary run by the Archbishop of Krakow. And after World War II ended, he finished his religious studies at Krakow Seminary and was ordained in 1946. He actually spent 2 years in Rome, where he finished his doctorate in theology. He returned to his native Poland in 1948 and served in several parishes in and around Krakow, John Paul became the Bishop of Umbi in 1958, and then the Archbishop of Krakow 6 years later. Considered one of the Catholic Church's leading thinkers, he participated in the Second Vatican Council, sometimes called Vatican II. This council began reviewing church doctrine in 1962, holding several sessions over the course of the next few years. As a member of the council, John Paul helped the church to examine its position in the world. And of course, as all humans who have a spiritual side, and all humans who know what's going on, love animals. And of course, Cardinal Pope John II was also one of those. Now, he was actually well regarded for his contributions to the church. And because of his work in the church and for the church, he was made a cardinal in 1967 by Pope John Paul VI. Pope Paul VI. Now, one of the other things that happened to him while he was a pope, and luckily he was very close to home, he received a great threat to his life. In 1981, because some people misunderstood his work and what he was trying to do, John Paul was shot twice in St. Peter's Square in Vatican City. Fortunately, he was able to recover from his injuries and later actually forgave his attacker. So he held no grudges, and he was able to survive and continue his work of trying to build peace and lead the humans to peace and brotherhood. So he was a record breaker. But beyond numbers, the leadership of the Polish Pope guided the Catholic Church through many rising challenges in modern times. So it's not a place where he could be coasting or doing minimal things or minimal programs. He actually worked very hard and was able to accomplish many things. He had the quote of "Don't be afraid." One of the greatest challenges that he faced was the Cold War, where two blocs were pitted themselves and the world against each other. Now, John Paul II had suffered firsthand from the oppression of Nazi and communist regimes. He was fundamental, as mentioned before, in the fall of communism in Eastern Europe. And one of his first trips was to his native Poland in 1979. It became a defining point that encouraged Poles to fight for freedom. Like I said, it was during this time, I think, that he talked to the people behind the Solidarity movement. In fascicle 39, quote, "The power of having been oppressed brings perfection, love, patience, tolerance to those who have gained humane attributes. But to those who have not gained these virtues, it brings violence and cruelty." End quote. So basically, if you've undergone tremendous hurt in your life and have been oppressed in your life, if you yourself don't have, let's say, spiritual or humane qualities like love, like patience, like tolerance, then you will reflect what your early life was or what your life was in terms of pain, and you will give that pain to others. So apparently, John Paul II has gained humane qualities because he had no grudges for the people who attacked him, and he had forgiveness and tolerance of all humans. He was a seasoned traveler and reached all corners of the world. He made 104 international trips and visited 130 countries. Now, that is enough to go around the world 30 times. However, it was sad to note that the two countries he could not to visit was China and Russia. John Paul II was a pioneer in calling for joint prayer in favor of peace, as he did in Assisi, Italy, working towards the unification of all religions as embodied in the Knowledge Book. The first joint prayer was in 1986, and more than 150 delegates from 12 religions heeded his call. As you can see in the slide here, that is the Dalai Lama. And Dalai Lama has also continued to work in the same manner of unification of number one, religions, and number two, science and religion. And this is a quote at the time that the Assisi World Day of Prayer was closing, and this is his remarks, quote, "For the first time in history, we have come together from everywhere, Christian churches and ecclesiastical communities and world religions in this sacred place dedicated to St. Francis, to witness before the world, each according to his own conviction about the transcendent quality of peace. The form and content of our prayers are very different, as we have seen, and there can be no question of reducing them to a kind of common denominator. Yes, in this very difference, we have perhaps discovered anew that regarding the problem of peace and its relation to religious commitment, there is something which binds us together," end quote. Now, during his pontificate, several major conflicts made international headlines. The Pope, who had survived World War II, did not remain silent. He became the voice of humanity, actively advocating against violence. Quote, "War never again," end quote. So many times people in the religious sector basically live secluded lives in the sense that they do not involve themselves in world politics. They do not involve themselves with the goings on at the time that's going on in the planet. But he, according to what his mission looks like it was, not only did not keep quiet, but played an active role in making sure that, number one, religious unification took place, and number two, peace was a major goal in the world. He also did not forget women. He was the first pope to write an apostolic letter directed to women. It was called the Mulieris Dignitatem. In it, he urged them to reflect on their personal, cultural, social, and ecclesiastical responsibilities. So similar to Ataturk, who respected women and brought women to their proper level in society and give them respect, John Paul also did the same, meaning women were important and they were not to be oppressed. Now, of course, despite the fact that he was a great missionary and came to this planet to accomplish a great mission, he did get Parkinson's, and weakened by this sickness himself, he remained active until his very last moments. He used his personal experience as a teaching tool for a world already under the influence of the throwaway culture. So despite his sickness, he kept on working. In the Jubilee for the year 2000, John Paul II formally apologized for the Church's past errors. Now, this was a big deal. It was a historic moment, which the Pope defined as purification of memory, which allowed Christians to enter the third millennium more open to God. So he bravely faced what the Church had done earlier. That was a mistake and a misdirection of action, and basically said, sorry, we have done this, we accept the responsibility, and we are sorry for it, and we apologize for it. This took great courage, especially for the Catholic Church. Not only that, he also made many apologies. And during his reign as Pope, he apologized to the Jews, to women, to people convicted by the Inquisition, to Muslims killed by the Crusaders, and almost everyone who had suffered at the hands of the Catholic Church over the years. So he saw the truth for what it was and did not want to misrepresent the truth or cover the truth or somehow pretend these things didn't happen. He basically faced it head on and accepted the church's responsibility and apologized for it. He was also a pope for young people. He understood that young people needed special attention and guardianship. He came up with a gathering dedicated exclusive to them, World Youth Day. The Pope said he felt like another young person in the crowd. If you live with youth, you have to become young. And actually staying around young people, you tend to become younger and have a different viewpoint than if you stayed with your peers. So he did not forget anyone. He talked to the men, he talked to the women, he talked to and took care of the youth. He made sure that people knew that he was accepting to all religions, not only Catholicism, and that everyone has the same goal and all the religions are basically saying the same thing. Now, usually popes and Catholic religious leaders stay within their own congregation, stay within their own realm. However, Pope John Paul II appeared at one of the oldest mosques in the Islamic world, the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, Syria. Now, this mosque is deeply cherished by Muslims and Christians alike because it is believed to be the tomb of Prophet Yahya. He is called John the Baptist by Christians. During this visit, he said, quote, "It is my ardent hope that Muslim and Christian religious leaders and teachers will present our two great religious communities as communities in respectful dialogue, never more as communities in conflict," end quote. Now, of course, the church and the Muslim community were always in conflict. And however, Pope tried to turn that around, saying that they have common aims and common goals. So historically, the church itself was actually disagreed with Islam and said that those teachings were wrong. However, John Paul II departed from this historical practice. He always considered Muslims as a fellow spiritual community deserving of respect and admiration. Islam and Christianity share most of their beliefs, the principal value of the unity of divinity, the prophets, Jesus and Mary, Jerusalem, and the promise of life after life are all common to both faiths. And here he is being photographed as he is kissing the Quran. So the Quran, which is the book that Muslims believe is the direct revelations from God, acknowledges Judaism and Christianity as precursors and early forms of Islam. Today, through the efforts of John Paul II as a pioneer in interfaith bridge building, Muslims too feel as though Catholicism has started to reciprocate and recognize Islam and Muslims as partners in spirituality. We're all on the same path, going in the same place. There should be no discrimination with anything or with anyone. Now, in Fascicle 17, it states, "In everything there is always an advancement from the initial towards the final. All Jews, all Christians and Muslims believe in the unity of Allah. Jews believe in Moses and their book, the Old Testament. Christians believe in Jesus Christ and the prophets before him. They have compiled all the books along with the New Testament in the Bible. Muslims, they have believed in all the prophets and their books together with the Quran that was imparted to Holy Muhammad through revelation, because Allah desired it so. Faith is one thing, unification is another. Now, in this final period, we have bound the 5 books in one volume by the revealed knowledge book of yours. So the knowledge book basically contains the essence of the previous religions, the previous texts, like the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Quran, and the I forgot, sorry. So anyway, there are 5 books, and the knowledge book contains the essence of all the religions and all the books. Basically, at the beginning, we are given baby steps to follow, and then as we grow and as we become more mature spiritually, as we grow over time and being able to absorb more energies are given to us, and new knowledge is given to us, and new ways of doing things are given to us. However, to continue fascicle 17, quote, that is, we have compiled all the religions in a single book. Our brothers, sisters who can embrace without making any discriminations all the living beings created by the Lord and who adopt this thought will be assembled under the roof of the single book and will step into the golden age. So the knowledge book actually is the final step in our preparatory program of being able to be at a level spiritually and energetically to be able to enter the golden age and be able to go to the advanced dimensions. Now, John Paul II did not forget the Middle East either. He often called for peace in the Middle East and for restoration of rights and dignity to the Palestinians. He was against the war in Iraq, and he believed ardently that Muslims and Christians working together could bring both God and peace to our world. In a world despiritualized by materialism, secular fundamentalism, and religious extremism, ravaged by war, greed, and violence, and disenchanted by ideologies and false religions, he was a champion of morality, of moderation, and peace. So to show one of the ways that he reached out to the Jewish community and Jewish leaders, he invited or talked with 130 Jewish leaders, rabbis, and cantors to come to meet the Pope on January the 18th, 2005. Now, this is the year that he died. One of their spokesmen, Rabbi Jacques Ben-Parad, said, quote, Pope John Paul II is indeed the Pope of the Jews. He opened his arms to embrace the Jewish people, end quote. John Paul II took dramatic steps to improve the church's relationship with the Jewish people based on the mutual respect and genuine affection. He was the first pope to visit the Great Synagogue in Rome. He issued the historic We Remember statement on the Holocaust. So Christians and Catholics have always believed that the Jews were responsible for the death of Jesus Christ. So John Paul II basically forgave the Jews or accepted that they were just acting in their mission to bring about the miraculous resurrection of Christ. Now he became beatified, just like he was beatifying so many people. He was beatified or called blessed on May the 1st, 2011, because it was proven that he had performed 2 miracles. And these miracles occurred after death. And a miracle, of course, is something that happens for which we have no explanation in science. We don't know what it happened. However, it did happen, so it's a miracle. So according to the church, John Paul performed his first miracle on a French nun. Sister Marie Simon Pierre, who says she was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2001. She worsened in the subsequent years and had healed after John Paul's intercession in June 2005, several months after he died. So again, they somehow prayed to John Paul II, and this nun was healed. And this, of course, happened after he was dead. So Pierre describes writing down the Pope's name, going to bed, and in the morning having, quote, leapt out of bed with her body, quote, no longer insensitive, rigid, and interiorly I was not the same. So she woke up, jumped out of bed, no more Parkinson's, and she was able to move freely. Her recovery was reviewed by medical and legal experts who submitted their reports to the Vatican before it was determined to be a miracle. So for a miracle to be declared a miracle, there has to be very rigorous studies being made, research being made. The status of the person before the miracle happened has to be documented, had to be proven, and the status of the person after the miracle happened also had to be documented and researched and proven. So in this case, John Paul, it was proven through research and through the actions of the persons on whom the miracle, for whom the miracle happened, that indeed it was a miracle. Now, the second miracle that John Paul II performed was in 2011, again, 6 years after his death. And he cured a woman of an aneurysm on a major blood vessel in her brain. And in this case, it is her family who prayed to a shrine of John Paul on her behalf. This again was documented and researched, and a neurosurgeon who treated the woman, Alejandro Vargas Roman, told Costa Rican news site De La Nacion, which first reported on the miracle, that the disappearance of the aneurysm had no scientific explanation. The woman was then moved to Vatican City to be reviewed by doctors and theologians who later declared the legitimacy of the miracle. So this is a step not lightly taken. Becoming a saint or being named a saint is not a trivial matter, and it is rigorously researched and documented, and it has to be unequivocal evidence that a miracle occurred, that the status before the miracle and after the miracle is completely different, but it is the same person who's able to do this. So in the case of the aneurysm, there must have been brain studies that showed the aneurysm, and later study that showed there was no evidence of an aneurysm in the same place. Now, the decision to canonize or make John Paul II a saint was made official by Pope Francis on July 5th, 2013, following the recognition of a miracle attributed to the intercession of John Paul II. So these are two documented miracles that were performed after John Paul II was asked to intervene to benefit the two people in question. Fascicule 15, it states as to what the place of John Paul II is, or Ataturk is, or even Mevlana is the following, quote, "On your planet, there are many holinesses and light brains at the moment who have been embodied through gene transfers. They are the lights of the golden age and have been transferred to your planet to guide you. These friends of ours are the possessors of advanced consciousnesses who lived in the past and now they live among you." So these people, these saints, these holinesses, these light brains come to this planet with a specific mission to accomplish, a specific task to accomplish. And seeing what John Paul II was doing and was able to accomplish in all his travels and all his teachings and all his work, he is one of these high consciousnesses, one of these holinesses who is here to promote unification, to promote interreligious, again, unification, and emphasizing to the world that peace is possible, that peace is a goal to be achieved, and that brotherhood and sisterhood is possible and needs to be the goal of everyone. Over the course of his 27 years pontificate, John Paul II overcame many obstacles and reached many goals. He lived through a series of oppressive governments and saw firsthand the consequences of hatred and violence. It was an experience that formed his pontificate, and he never ceased to promote peace wherever he went. So as I said before, and as encapsulated in fascicule 39, if you grow up with oppression, if you grow up with violence around you, if you experience this knowledge and this violence directly, then more than likely the victim becomes the abuser the next time around. However, if that victim understands what is happening, understands the reason why that has been happening, and what the actual purpose of that occurrence is, then they will not be violent. They will not be the oppressors. They will not be the ones who are, again, the oppressors. And they will be able to take that, transform it into peace and love and tolerance and acceptance. Now in fascicule 2 of the knowledge book, it says, do not forget that your most perfect religious books, which were revealed from the divine plane, have always enlightened you on the path of goodwill, tolerance, peace, brotherhood, love, work, and learning. Now, this book again explains to you one by one, with all its openness, the same suggestions that are the essence of all the books. Basically, all the religious texts, all the sacred texts that have been given to humanity come from the same source, and basically they tell us the same thing. Love your neighbor, forgive your neighbor, accept your neighbor. Everyone is the same. We are all brothers and sisters. Each one of those religions, each one of those books basically tell us the same. And if we had learned the lesson from those books and were able to previously accept each other, love each other, forgive each other, and accept everything as it is, then none of the subsequent books would have been needed. However, we had to have the books that came in from the philosophies of the Far East. Then came the Torah, which basically took whatever the philosophies of the Far East stated, plus they put their own program in place. And then, of course, that was the basis. The people around Moses did not understand most of it, and did not follow Moses. Therefore, another book had to be given to us, and that one came from Jesus Christ. And he came in with love and forgiveness, where the Torah basically spoke about an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But basically, that may have been a misunderstanding, because you give what you take, or you give what you need to give at the time that you need to give it. But of course, the Quran came in after that and built on the previous books. And this time it addressed the social conditions of humanity, of social relations of humanity. So with the Torah, we had the law. With Jesus Christ in the New Testament, we had love and forgiveness. And with the Torah, we had social activities and social attitudes that were being addressed. So step by step, humans were educated, and in each step, higher energies were given and higher knowledge was given, or maybe more knowledge was given. And now the last step of our preparation to entry into the golden age comes the knowledge book, and it builds on the previous books, unifies them all in one single book, unifies them all, or their essence. So in other words, you won't find the book of Genesis in this knowledge book. However, you will find information and knowledge on how everything began, what the physical constitution of the universe is, where we came from, where we're going, and what things will occur. So the entire purpose is, again, to explain the same thing over and over again to humanity, that peace is the answer, love is the answer, and everything needs to be going, and everything is going, whether we see it or not, towards the good. In Fascicule 35, it says, quote, "Until today, sacred books have assisted you in your awareness progresses. Now the history of religions has come to an end. The period of intellect, logic, conscience has been opened." So previously, we needed an outside teacher, an outside guardian, an outside influence for us to be able to be trained and to be able to perform worship in the way that we're supposed to be performing it. Now that time has finished, where before we needed the teacher and the outside guru or priest or rabbi or spiritual leader, that is not necessary for those individuals who have encapsulated and who have merged with the previous teachings. So the one who has completely absorbed the teachings of the Torah will then arrive at the doorstep of the New Testament. For those who've absorbed those teachings and internalized those teachings, where those teachings or the moral code have become part of their lives, and they are directed by those moral guide. And therefore, the next step comes the Quran, where it's the 18th dimension. And now the final step of preparation for us to be able to absorb the energies and frequencies of the 19th dimension comes the knowledge book that basically takes us from the 18th dimension and gradually takes us through the programs that it has to reach the 19th dimension, or Omega. Fascicle 15, it says, "The triangle of the World Brotherhood Union is the preparatory triangle of the Golden Age. Now the mission of the actual missionaries has begun. You should henceforth be prepared for that period, because we are going through that period at the moment." So as you can see through this picture, there are hundreds of people that are being shown, and basically it is time to realize that each one of us is a missionary. We may not be a Kemal Ataturk, we may not be John Paul II, we may not be a Mevlana, or we may not be the Dalai Lama, or any of the very important and high levels of imams and Buddhist monks, or all the other spiritual leaders. However, each one of us has a specific mission to accomplish, has come here with a specific mission to perform. So we are the actual missionaries, and we are being prepared through all the experiences that we go through to advance in our spirituality, to advance in our being able to absorb more and more energies and be able to advance to higher dimensions. In Fascicule 35, it says, number 14, "The step taken forward towards this fourth order of the Lord is the genuine path of God. The path to be trodden is the path of light. The time to be gone through is the light year, and the gate to be entered is the tunnel of timelessness." 15, "And the exit gate of this tunnel is being opened by the invisible energy key of the knowledge book in your hands," fascicule by fascicule. So the Torah held the key to the New Testament. The New Testament holds the key to the Quran. The Quran holds the key to the knowledge book, and the knowledge book now holds the key to the 19th dimension, to be able to accomplish our mission, where when we started with our initial energy form, and now our final energy form, that energy form is able to absorb energy and frequencies and knowledge that it was not able to do in previous incarnations and in previous lives. So now is the time to unify everyone under a single roof, under a single mission, under a single path to love, to brotherhood, to tolerance. And this time it is us who will make the decision. So as long as we have absorbed the teachings, previous teachings, and as long as we have internalized those teachings where we no longer have to think, we no longer need someone else basically urging us and making sure that we do those things that we're supposed to do, and we do follow the moral code, then at that point, we are ready to absorb and to learn what the knowledge book has to give. And therefore, we become our own teacher. And we, through karma, live through whatever experiences we need to live through to make sure that we learn our final lessons through the experiences that we go through, to make sure that we are all going towards the right way, or making sure that we are able to go to the 19th dimension. And now maybe it's time for a break. So we've covered the information by John Paul II. Now we'll take a short break and we'll come back and wrap this up. So thank you. I keep forgetting to mention that, number one, I can be reached at Anyway, information about the knowledge book can be found on the United States website, which is www.usa.theknowledgebook.net. The Turkish website is www.dkb-mevlana.org.tr. My email address is mmjp99@gmail.com, and my telephone number is 973-787-7035. We are still willing to send you, and we'll be very happy to send you 3 free chapters from the knowledge book to give you a hands-on picture, hands-on experience of what the knowledge book has and it contains. So we'll take a short break and we'll come back. Thank you. Hello, everyone. And we're back again with the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek on Transformation Talk Radio. What we have been doing is basically taking world knowledge, in this case, knowledge about John Paul II, what he did, what he accomplished, what his influence was, and basically unite that knowledge with the 19th dimension, which is the Omega dimension. It is also called the Union of Central Suns. Of course, this is the first time that this dimension is open to humanity. It is open to humanity through the knowledge book. Now, why did we talk about the John Paul II? Number one, he is, as the knowledge book states, one of those beings who have come here because they have accomplished a certain level of consciousness. They have been able to accomplish a high level of spirituality and a high level of energy. They have been able to accomplish the salvation program for themselves. And now they are here, or we're here, to help us to achieve the same thing. Now, he was one of the world leaders who did something that is actually different than was done before. Now, many people, when they come in, they take everything that we get taught and live by that. In other words, if the John Paul II lived by the attitude of the Catholic Church, or the attitude of the church took towards Judaism, towards Islam, towards Buddhism, towards everything, then he would not have accomplished what he needed to accomplish. He actually personified the idea that once you get to a certain level, once you've internalized the moral code, you know that you need to accept your neighbor, you need to love your neighbor, you know that your neighbor is yourself, you know that your neighbor is your brother or sister, then you become the person who can make judgments, who could make decisions, who discern what needs to be done at that time. And John Paul II went contrary to the previous church's position and church's statement, and basically went ahead and accepted the other religions as equal to the Catholic religion, as equal in the work to create peace and brotherhood on this planet, and to be able for all of us to live to our full potential. So he was one of the individuals that basically did not follow the previous steps taken by either church or state. And he brought in his own agenda. He brought in, well, actually it's his own agenda, but it was actually the agenda of unification and building brotherhood and sisterhood between religions. And he was one of the people who basically comes in and says, okay, we have different way that we pray. We have different words that those prayers have. However, the essence behind those prayers is the same. They're saying the same thing over and over again. Love your neighbor, be tolerant, be patient, be kind. Love yourself and love others. So the biggest thing that we need to learn is actually love. Loving ourselves, loving humanity, loving all there is, and be able to encompass everything with our love. And once we do that, then we will become at the same level as John Paul II or Kemal Ataturk or Mevlana or Muhammad or all the religious leaders that we've had and all the books that have been given to us as guidebooks. So in essence, we can't all be John Paul II. We can't all be on the scientific side an Einstein or a person of great knowledge as far as science is concerned. However, we can be ourselves. We can incorporate, and we did incorporate, most of us, the moral code that was taught to us by previous books, by previous sacred texts, and we can, over time, now incorporate into our lives the truth as given by the knowledge book, and able then to absorb the knowledge and the energies from that dimension knowledge that we are receiving, and step by step, we get closer and closer to the point where we become genuine humans. And what is a genuine human? A genuine human is one who can give you food even though they are starving, can give you clothes even if they themselves are cold and freezing, who can encompass love and be friends with everyone and accepts everyone as a brother, sister, and as equals. So we've been talking about John Paul II. Now it's time to wrap up. Please remember that this talk is being given once a month on the fourth Tuesday of the month, 4 o'clock Pacific and 7 o'clock Eastern time. Again, www.usa.theknowledgebook.net, www.dkb.davidkiteboy-mevlana.org.tr, and mmjp Mary John Peter 99@gmail.com or 973-787-7035. Stay cool and stay loving. We'll see you next month. Thank you and take care.
You've been listening to Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek. Marge was led to the Knowledge Book, a gift to humanity at its time of transition to the Golden Age that provides the truth, energies, and knowledge. Now she shares information from and answers questions about the Knowledge Book with you the fourth Tuesday each month at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information, visit usa.theknowledgebook.net and tune in next time for another amazing show on Knowledge Book Radio.